Turn. There we go. Finally, it was just taking forever. Sometimes it goes really fast. When I did my Comic Hall show on Friday, I was like,
Uh-huh.
okay, start broadcast. I'm sitting there fiddling around, and I look over. I was like, oh, I've been on for a while. This
Everybody's looking at me.
Hello, this is Dylan Knows, episode 216. Oh my
Wow.
God. And this time I've got a co-host. It's been a couple of weeks since I had a co-host just because of schedules and Halloween and stuff like that. But this is my good friend, writer, MJ Khan. Say hi, MJ.
Well, hello, interwebs.
Yeah, how's it going?
Hey, it's going well. Like I said, I'm trying to weather the cold here. It's a little early for it to be starting, but
We had 21 degrees as a low here
Oh,
on Friday or Thursday night into Friday. It was
Ooh.
absolutely brutally cold, and it was weird though. The windows weren't frosted. I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. There was a little bit of wetness on it because it had rained earlier, and so I go out and I turn on my windshield wiper to wipe it, and I wipe it, and then it freezes. It wasn't frost, but it was cold.
Yeah.
It was cold of water on there, and all of a sudden I wipe it. It's like, oh man! So now I had to put the defroster on, and that got
Wait for it. Yeah, but you know what, though? It's football weather, so.
Yes, it is football weather.
Football, when it's warm, just isn't. There's
No.
something wrong with that. It just doesn't seem right. So.
Yeah, September. Oh yeah, I mean it's good for people like my stepmom who doesn't like the cold weather but likes to go to the games with my dad. They always go to either opening day or like another game the Ravens have in September or at the latest early October. But then with just me and him, it's like, yeah, let's go December. Yeah.
Yeah, now that I won't be doing. I just want to watch him play in the cold. I don't want to be out there, live with it. So
We've had some good ones. There was one we were playing the Saints. It was the week before Christmas, and what was really neat about that, it was cold, but it was really really sunny. So I mean, you almost probably could have gotten a sunburn because we were sitting like right with the sun hitting us in the face the whole time. So it wasn't bad. But what I remember most about that game, there's two things. One was Santa Claus was patrolling the exterior of the field, and two, there was a couple. I think they had just gotten married, and they were from New Orleans, and they were up. I guess they were doing a DC, New York, Boston, whatever, Eastern Seaboard type of honeymoon. And they happened to, they were Saints fans, and they happened to be in Baltimore when the Saints played, so they were sitting right by us. So they're decked out in their Saints gear and stuff like that, and the crowd's razzing them, but at the same time, though, they're buying them beers, congratulating on their wedding, and taking selfies with them and stuff like that. So it's kind of fun to see. Yeah, there are some assholes who are out there in the games, but there are also some fun people too.
Yeah, they're sticking to being the minority, so that's good.
Yeah, but there's no football for me this week because Ravens are on their bye. Well needed bye. I'm hoping from this point on, because they have to go on a 6-1 drive to get to 10-6 and to get to playoffs. Or get to at least to the wild card. That's what they have to. 6-1, MJ. Now, to be fair, their record is, I mean, who they're playing actually could happen because the only good really as of now, the only really good team we're facing is we're facing the Steelers again. That's in Pittsburgh in December. But we've got when we come back from the bye, we've got Green Bay without Aaron Rodgers.
Without Aaron Rodgers, yep.
We've got the Texans without Deshaun Watson. Who else do we have? We've got the Browns again. We have the Bengals again. We have the Colts without Andrew Luck, and one other. There's one other we have Detroit, which might be. I think Detroit might be a tougher game than I think people are giving them credit for. We've got Detroit at home, and then the Steelers. So yeah, that's like the 7 games. So if we get our heads out of our asses and play like we're supposed to, we could conceivably either run the table because we always play the Steelers tough. Or we could go 6-1 if need be. So we have a Monday night game at home. We're like undefeated at home. Do you need to come down here for a second, bud? Don't be playing. I'm on the air live right now. There's Noah.
Hey, Noah.
And his buddy Danny's upstairs. Hey, Danny, you want to get on the air real quick? Come on, Danny, you want to get on TV real quick? You're live on the internet right now. There's Danny. That's my friend MJ.
Hello, Danny.
He said hello. Say hi. All right, I'll go away. Shoot.
Shooing him away. You just made his day.
Yeah, I told them they couldn't come down here, and all of a sudden Noah shows up as like, "What are you doing here?" But I mean, we could conceivably go 6-1 if we can, focus better and get better, and we could go 7-0. I doubt it. I highly doubt it because I'm pessimistic right now because our team sucks. But Carolina's not doing too bad. They're in a tough spot though. New Orleans, New Orleans is looking pretty real this year. Falcons, you never know what you're going to get with them.
Right.
And Tampa's just they're bad now without Jameis Winston. So.
I think that's the big story for all the teams is like the injuries. These are some big name people that are going down. So, it's really impacting an entire team. So,
yeah, that's what's making this year so weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And look, I'm not just going to blame the injuries, but if our offensive line, the Ravens offensive line, had the 2 or 3 pieces that we have on IR who aren't going to be playing the rest of the year, it'd be a different story because Joe Flacco, while I do not believe he is elite, but if you give him a nice pocket,
mm-hmm.
he will make you pay. He's just that good. He needs to have that pocket. He can't be rushed. When he's rushed, that's when he makes mistakes. That's when he throws the bad passes and he doesn't check down fast enough to find open people. But if you have that line blocking for you pretty good, and they're also blocking good for your running back, because we got a nice running back, this kid Collins, who I never even knew about. We got him from Kansas City Chiefs. They released him or something like that, and he was terrible for them, and he's been lights out for us. And so if we get him, we have that where you get him running, and then you just get Flacco back, and he's got this pocket. He'll make you pay for it. So that's what we need to win. We'll see what happens. But we're not here to talk about football. We could do that all day. We're going to save that for our
conversation.
Yeah, we're going to save that for our Man Day episode, though. The one thing about the Man Day episode, MJ, and we'll get to it when it comes to that's always on. For those who don't know, it's always Super Bowl Sunday, right. And MJ and I are always do our show on Super Bowl Sunday. This year might be a different story. My brother-in-law is turning 40, and he's a Hokie. He went to Virginia Tech, so he's a Hokie, and he's also a Redskins fan, and he's also a hockey fan. He likes the Capitals, and he wants to bring back a tradition he and his dad used to do, where on Super Bowl Sunday, if the Capitals were home, they would go to a Capitals home game. So this year, for his actual 40th birthday, which is Super Bowl Sunday, the Capitals are going to be home. So he wanted everyone, the family, to come hang out if they could. And so we're going to go hang out with my brother-in-law. I think it's an afternoon game, so we might make it back in time for maybe around 7:30. We'll see. We'll miss maybe a little bit of the game. You got the whole national anthem and all the commercials, stuff like that. It'd be 14 minutes, and it was like, man, we missed 1 minute. It started at 6:20, right? But it'll be fun. I've never been to a professional hockey game, so
that's a good reason.
Be fun.
That's
so
cool.
that'll be fun. Went to a Pee-wee hockey one, and this is fun. And then we will talk about comics, I promise. I got to tell you this story real quick. My nephew is on a travel hockey team down in Virginia, and a few weeks back, my brother-in-law was like, "Hey, we're going to be in your backyard." He's like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, we're going to be playing at a place called the Reisterstown Sports Complex at Mitchell's Sports Complex." Is like, "Yes, it's right across the street. I can see it from my house." And it's like, I never knew they had an ice hockey rink. So sure enough, the day comes up and we drive over, because we're literally 5 minutes away. We drive over, and there's this complex. It's like, where the hell did this come from? And you walk in, it has an indoor soccer, a full-length professional indoor soccer area on one side, and the official full-length ice hockey rink on the other side, because the local colleges use this. Stevenson University, which is down the street from here, and UMBC, which is down closer to Baltimore City, but I guess they don't have a closer one, or they have to share it with someone else. They are using that for their men's and women's hockey team. They use the Reisterstown Sportsplex over here. So I was like, wow. And the first thing I noticed is, I don't know if you've ever been to a hockey game. You walk in there, and the air conditioning is at 20 degrees, because you can't have the ice melt. So you walk in, it's like, oh my God, I'm in a refrigerator.
That's why everybody's always so bundled up. I'm like, no, that doesn't look like fun either. So,
but my nephew's team was just way too good for the Reisterstown team. They had to invoke the slaughter rule. My nephew's team beat them 10-0, and they didn't play the third period. They did over 2 periods, and there's like by the end of the second period, it was like, okay, this is done. After 2 periods, if they're up 10-0, game's over. Yeah. So it's like, wow, that was but just it was the first time. It's like there's actually a sports complex over there. I did not know that. Yeah, there's a miniature golf course, and there's a 8-round regular golf course, and they have a the driving range. That's all I know that they have over there. But then sure enough, they're in this back area. You've got the complex that has the ice hockey and the indoor soccer, and then there's like 4 or 5 baseball fields. It's like, where the hell did this come from? I really didn't know. But enough about the life of Dylan and sports.
Dylan knows sports.
Dylan knows sports. Yes. See, you're the only guy I can really talk about this because I'm not a soccer player, so I can't talk to Jerry because she's a soccer mom. But I don't. My son doesn't play soccer, and I mean, we talk a little bit about it, but it's most like, let's get onto our top 10 list, shall we? But yeah, there's a lot of interesting things going on in the world of comics. They are not immune to the sexual harassment garbage that's going on in the world right now, which is just this world just keeps spiraling out of control, and you can blame the president, and the administration, but at the same time, it would probably still be a similar situation, possibly if someone else was elected or whatever.
Well, the majority of these things that are coming out now, they've happened before him, and so I don't know. I think these are grown men. You know how to control yourself. You know what's right and wrong. Keep your junk in your pants. Nobody wants to see that unless they ask you to. Then it's fine, whatever. But otherwise, don't go around just waving it like a magic wand at people. Nobody wants that.
The most disturbing thing was what Louis C.K. did, with the one woman said that she was hanging out with a bunch of her friends, and he came over and was like chit-chatting with them, and he's like, hey, do you mind if I take off my pants or something like that? And they thought he was joking, and then all of a sudden he zips off the pants, he takes off his shirt, and brings out his thing and starts jerking it. It's like, what the fuck's the matter with you, man?
And I think that he thought by saying, oh, can I, that in his mind, that's like, oh, that makes it okay. But nobody is that stupid. This is just, I don't know, privilege and people in positions of power just, doing threatening things, because there's just no excuse for it. And the thing is, though, it's so pervasive. That's my thing, and then you hear about the people who obviously knew about it and were covering it up. To me, they're just as guilty, press teams, and I don't know. It's bad.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And the fact that all this is finally coming out, I guess maybe it is a good thing, because you just get one stone knocked over or one domino knocked over, and in the end, all the other dominoes come down. All of a sudden, all this stuff comes out, and we'll talk about that first, and we'll get into the more fun stuff when it comes to. We will be talking fun stuff. We'll be talking our reviews of Thor Ragnarok.
Right? Yeah.
If you've ever seen our show, when MJ and I start talking movie reviews, it's quite a sight to see. We could go for 2.5 hours on it.
There are spoilers.
Yes, there are always going to be spoilers. Absolutely. But yeah, we'll just talk about this real quick. So it's pervasive throughout everything right now, the sexual harassment thing, but it's hit the comic book industry in a couple ways. The biggest one, I think, is Eddie Berganza, who is a group editor at DC. Now, there have been stories about him sexually harassing or inappropriately touching some of the female staffers of DC Comics, or even the freelancers at conventions, or when they're having meetings and stuff like that. And they've who I can't think of the artist's name, but she was talking about how she was screaming her head off about this like 10 years ago, and DC swept under the carpet, and people actually were, I guess, was it mocking was a word she was using. They sort of threw her under the bus and didn't think much about it, and that's why she sort of went off on her own and did her own thing. It doesn't really work for DC anymore. But finally, more people have been coming out about Eddie Berganza, and it took multiple people for DC to finally say, okay, you're going to be suspended now. So they finally did suspend him as the group editor of DC Comics, and it's still, and as you and I mean, it's been happening for years, and as we said earlier, it's been happening for years, and nothing's been done about it. Then all of a sudden, DC is like, oh, well, we better do something. And then, people are like, good going, DC. No, it is. Yes, it's good you're doing it now. You should have done it 10 years ago.
Right. And that's where you got to ask yourself, it's like, why didn't they do anything then? It's like, and I'm sure they believe these people when they come up with these, they come forward with these allegations. I'm sure they believe them, but they're like, well, you know what? It's the boys club. It's the good old this, the good old that. They're making money for us. They're doing their job. Well, you know what? That doesn't excuse anything. We all have a job. If I went to work and did that, you think I'd be there after one day, after one person said that? No. But at the same time, it's like, again, I'm an adult. I'm like, what's expected of you, what you can and cannot do. So I don't understand the mindset that makes people think in these positions that it's okay to do that.
No, you're absolutely right, and it just keeps spiraling. I mean, Anna Paquin is backing up Ellen Page. Yeah, thank you. Assessment that Brett Ratner, who directed the
that movie that shall not be named.
yes, that has mutants in it.
Yes,
that during the filming of that, he was being sexually inappropriate, doing stuff to Ellen Page, and Anna Paquin's like, yeah, dude, I saw a lot of it too, and I don't know. Again, I haven't been fully reading all the stories. Once again, that's my problem. Is I'm one of these guys. I try to do the right thing, and I read some of the articles, but sometimes when you see multiple articles about something, it's like, okay, that's the general idea is what's in the headline. I get it now. Right. So I don't know all the basics, like and plus, you know what? I don't want to know, to be honest, because I don't do that. I never would do that. But there's that also. And then Brett Ratner is also playing a big role in this next one, which actually I think we might actually win on this one, because Gal Gadot is now considered probably better than Batman right now. Let's be honest. I mean, Wonder Woman was advanced so much with a woman director making so much money. A women-led superhero movie has totally blown open the box office, which, when it comes to professionals, that's what they look at. They don't care if it's a good story or whatever. If it makes $1 billion, oh shit, let's greenlight the sequel. And then everything was going along perfectly. Patty Jenkins said, "Hell yeah, I want to do a sequel." And Gal Gadot says, "As long as Patty's going to be on, I'm going to do it." But then when this Brett Ratner stuff started to appear, Gal Gadot is actually doing something that, because she is a woman. And this is an interesting thing I read, that she might actually be able to get away with. She said, I'm not going to sign on. Because she hadn't signed anything. She said she'd do it, but she hadn't signed the contract yet. That I'm not going to sign on to Wonder Woman 2 unless Brett Ratner has nothing to do with this. Now, I was telling MJ, I had no idea Brett Ratner had anything to do with Wonder Woman. I knew Patty Jenkins was directing it, but apparently, so I read the article. He produced it. He helped produce it. He has a producing credit. So he gave some money to get it done, and that's great. But you still can't, sexually harass women. You just can't do that. So now Gal's like, yeah, if his production company's still involved, I'm not going to be involved. And she basically has DC by the balls right now, because look, she didn't sign a multi-year deal like Ben Affleck did, or Ezra Miller, or Jason Momoa, because they didn't think that Wonder Woman was going to be, they thought it'd be a good hit, but they didn't think it was going to be the huge hit that it was. So they didn't sign her to a multi-year contract. They said, okay, we'll play it. We'll sign you to Justice League. I think they signed her to Justice League, and that was it. And nothing else after that. So now she did her time. She did Justice League. Justice League comes out next week. She's in that. And then she's not a part of DC right now. But guess what? People like Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. She's fantastic. They want her, and we want her as Wonder Woman, because she is fantastic. My wife loved her in it as well. My friend Gary loved her. I mean, she's when she was first cast, I think we might have even made some little mocking remarks about nothing bad, nothing like sexual harassment, Brett Ratner style, but like, you know what? I just don't think she's going to be good enough. And then all of a sudden we have to eat our words. So we'll say it. MJ and I have said it. We are sorry. We never doubted you.
I can't see anybody else doing it now.
So now, she's got DC by the ball. So DC's going to be like, oh shit.
And if you think about it, it's not just her. I mean, after the garbage that was Batman versus Superman, even going back to Man of Steel, Wonder Woman has basically carried the DC franchise now. I mean, she has just stepped up, and that movie has put them back to where they are in people's minds, where they should have been, where they wanted to be. So that's an important tentpole. That's a huge piece of their puzzle. They can't lose her. And if they were to replace her with someone else, can you imagine the backlash of that?
Yeah. Oh my God, it would be awful.
There would be no coming back from it. None. So I applaud her for doing this, and I think that she's done something that most men probably would never have done in that position.
Exactly.
Yeah. They wouldn't have done that.
And look, and just to prove your point, look at all the Justice League commercials and the new trailer, stuff like that. Guess who's front and center? It ain't Batman. It ain't Batman.
Superman who? I don't even know if he's in this or not.
But yeah, I mean, the newest commercial I see now, it starts off with Wonder Woman refinishing a statue and then thinking back to beating up a bunch of bad guys and aliens, stuff like that, and then comes back. She's making a comment, making a joke with a coworker. It's like, okay, there's Wonder Woman, she's back. And then it's like, okay, wait, there's Batman, and then there's Jason Momoa because everybody wants to see his big pecs and shit. So they show that picture, and then they come back, and there's Wonder Woman again doing all kinds of shit, and it's great because she's doing it so well, and she does it fantastic. So. But yeah, that's next week. Justice League comes out next week, and I will be. I mean, you and I are probably going to agree on this. It's going to make bank. It's going to make a ton of money.
It's going to make a ton of money.
It's going to make a lot of money. I honestly think it might even beat Ragnarok's take just for Wonder Woman. And that's it. I mean, that's the only.
People are waiting to see that again.
If it does. I'm not going to say, oh, it was all the Justice League being back together. I will give all credit to Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, with maybe a smidge to Jason Momoa because the women love Jason Momoa. There might be some men out there because, I mean, he is. Look, I'll be honest. He is a handsome man. He's studly. He's got all the stuff in the right places. The six pack, the pecs, the come hither stare, the dark, type of thing. But that's not Aquaman to me, and I've already talked about that. But I think that's going to draw the more people in. That and Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman is like, oh yeah, Ben Affleck, Batman is going to be in it, and maybe Superman too. Oh, okay, yeah, I suppose.
And that weird Flash is going to be in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's going to be the quipster. Okay, we're going to have someone who's going to be the guy who makes all the jokes. Okay, good. So we'll see about that. I mean, Joss Whedon, Zack Snyder together. I'd like to see. They've actually, and this is one of the things we'll talk about with Thor Ragnarok. I found capping Justice League at about 2 hours might actually be really good for the film, much like how Thor Ragnarok was capped about 2 hours also. Right. So that was. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So again, I applaud Gal Gadot, and to be honest, I think she's going to win. I mean, I do too. And I think you hit it exactly on the point, MJ. That if they say, well, call her bluff or whatever, it's like, okay, we'll sign somebody else. First, you're probably going to get Patty Jenkins saying, "F you guys, I'm not going to deal with that." Too. So she's gone, and then you're going to have to find someone else to direct it and maybe even write it, and then you're going to say, okay, so how are we going to connect that to justice? It's not going to work. I mean, how are you going to? Because you can't get somebody who looks like Gal Gadot to play Wonder Woman, and it's going to be a jarring effect. It's going to be like, I mean, I guess people, they'll get over it, but it's like, that's not Wonder Woman. Yeah, exactly what you said.
Yeah, but see, the thing is will the public get over it? I think that the public backlash will be just as big. They're going to be like, no, this is done for, which would then hurt the next Justice League and everything else that they've got planned after this. So I don't know. I think she's going to win this one.
Oh, absolutely.
They need her more than they need Brett Ratner. Brett Ratner helping them to produce something like this. They're like, we'll cough up the extra money. You can go.
Or you know what? They drop him out and says, who wants to produce the next Wonder Woman movie? I guarantee you, everybody in the world will say, oh, hell yeah. It made almost $1 billion. I'm going to make my money back and more.
you go on Kickstarter right now, and they were asking for public, crowdsourcing to help with the movie. They'd get it right now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We'll cap it at $100 million. Ding. Yeah. One day later, $150 million. Whoa, shit.
More Golden Lasso scenes.
And then the last of the sexual harassment stuff that's affecting comic stuff is Andrew Kreisberg, which this actually surprised me a lot. Andrew Kreisberg is the producer and almost like the driving force of the Arrowverse on CW, has now been dismissed because of unwanted sexual attention, inappropriate touching, physical contact. He's under investigation right now, so they're suspended. I think they suspended him, barring the investigation, because you really and we know the rule of law is you can't go out and say, you know what, MJ, you just sexually harassed me.
Right.
You know what? And I could spout off to the world, hey, don't buy MJ Khan's books because he sexually harassed me. You could say that, But then, people in this climate be like, oh shit, so they're going to suspend you, or they're going to take your books off the shelf. But then they're going to invest it, and if they investigate, they'll say, well, no, that asshole Dylan made it up. But then your career's already ruined by that. And I'm an asshole, So I'm not accusing MJ Khan of sexually harassing me at all. I mean, there might have been some inappropriate touching when I went up to him and gave him a big hug when I met him for the first time at Snarktown a couple years ago. But hey, it was fun, and
that's right.
He's not been scarred by it, right?
It was a mutual hug. But I think in his case, though, also, I mean, I think they were up to 19 people, though. And they've got emails going back to, a couple of years ago when apparently one of the other executive showrunners sent him an email saying, hey, you need to cut this stuff out. And then they said that, he responded by not speaking to this person for like 3 days. And then that was the end of it. So, there's a lot of smoke there for there to be no type of fire.
It is. And then the fact that, and you mentioned this 19, they broke it down to 15 women and 4 men. So it's kind of interesting. So to be continued, but I think in all these cases, I think Gal Gadot's going to win. We already discussed that. Eddie Berganza, he might be done, in the comic world. Andrew Kreisberg might even be done also. And then Brett Ratner should be done because I don't think he's ever made a single movie that I've enjoyed. Rush Hour was okay, but that was more Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker. But
the thing is, it's like these people in these creative positions that we're talking about. What do they do next? I mean, where do they go? If Kevin Spacey is done, Netflix has dropped everything with him. They halted production. They're not even doing anything else. I mean, I don't know where they go next unless they want to go independent with something, and then who's going to pick it up? Who's going to distribute? Who's going to go, be a part of that? So I guess their career is just over.
Yeah, and you know what? They should have realized that when they did what they did, and there's consequences. There's a lesson there. You do something you're not supposed to, and oh look, I got away with it for so long. Eventually, something's going to come back around, and you're going to get busted for it again. That's what disturbs me most about George Takei, because when I saw that someone is blaming him sexually not abusing, but harassing them, and then George comes out and says these are untrue, which is what you're going to say. Right. And I was like, okay, I'll give George the benefit of the doubt because I've seen other people who've known him their whole life and say it's all bullshit. But then all of a sudden I see something right before I come on the show that there are some emails around which details something similar to what happened to this guy that and it was George Takei's fault. So, yes, it was 25 years ago, but still there's no limit to how far back this can go. I mean, if you did something illegal 25 years ago, 30 years ago, whatever, it's still illegal. Absolutely. There is no, it's been 30 years. If you were busted back then, you would have been in jail for it and you would have done your time. And there's that. No, you wouldn't. It's completely different.
It still holds, yeah. And then, speaking of George Takei, those his interviews with Howard Stern have come back out, where, Howard and Robin asked him, and this was like, way before anything came out. It's like, oh, have you ever, here recently, have you ever done anything to somebody? And he didn't say no. And so then Robin said, okay, well, if you did play a little grab, touch and go, was it on the job? And he goes, oh, no, that would have been at my home. So it's there on tape. It's him talking about it. So I don't know. I just think this is the tip of the iceberg. God knows what all is going to start to come out.
Exactly, and there's lots, and and then maybe this will help, bring back the charges against our illustrious POTUS, who's been, who was charged with all this stuff before the election, but then it just sort of disappeared once he became POTUS. Maybe this will help chip away some more at that and the investigation, stuff like that. But we're not going to get political right now. One more interesting story that's not really sexual harassment. Well, I guess you consider it kind of, but it's kind of a weird story. And when I saw it, I was like, what the freak? Remember way back in the old days of the WB, and they had a little show called Smallville with Tom Welling, as young Clark Kent, and it lasted like 12 seasons, and he never put on the Superman outfit until the end. And even then, it was a big blur at the end. And one of the main characters that they introduced into the DC mythos was a character by the name of Chloe, played by actress Allison Mack.
Right.
who was one of the more popular characters on the show, because the Smallville focused mostly on Clark Kent's relationship with Lana Lang, which in the comics we know was, they grew up together in the Midwest, and you don't get a lot of exposure. When you're friendly like that, you're a boy and a girl, you tend to, in the Midwest particularly, I'm not being Midwest racist, but I'm just saying when you have family togetherness, like in a Kansas setting, whatever, if you have a best friend that's a girl, eventually as you guys get older, you're going to start, you feel comfortable with them, you're going to start dating. And more than likely, that's why a lot of the Midwestern couples have been together since high school and stuff like that. Right. So this was focusing on them. And then they introduced Erica Durance's Lois Lane, which I still find kind of weird that she was involved in Smallville, but that's it was a complete difference. That's completely different. But Chloe was the one that came in and was this new character that was so popular that they actually introduced a version of her character into the proper DC Universe comics. I think she's been deleted out now when they did the New 52, but before then they introduced a character called Chloe, who Clark grew up with. And what made it interesting was I was reading an article and I had to do a double take. Allison Mack, the actress, who you haven't really heard of since after Smallville, right, now apparently is the second in command of a sex cult called the NXZVM, something like that. I don't really know the stuff, but I mean, they have a picture of her. She's all bald headed now, and it's and there's a lot, there's sex stuff involved with it apparently, but it's just like, wow, I guess being a young star could mess you up.
I don't know. I mean, it talks about how she's like the recruiter for them. So that, I guess she used her star power because, as you said, she was really well known back during this. She was a big star. She used that, I guess, to go out and recruit all these women for the guy that runs it. I'm like, it's just really weird.
It's weird and it's sick and twisted and
it's kind of gross. It's like a really bad Lifetime movie because it's one of those things you watch and you're like, oh, this is so entertaining, but you're like, no, this could never happen. There you go. Look at that.
Yeah. So, so let me just make sure if there's any other crappy stuff we could talk about. No, I think the rest of the stuff is pretty good there. Let's talk about the other. There's two more big news things. We'll talk about that, and then we'll jump into Thor Ragnarok. The first one is kind of a big deal, particularly for DC. Brian Michael Bendis,
yes,
who did not, as far as we know, sexually harass anybody, but he was considered the guy that brought Marvel back from the brink for the most part. His Ultimate Spider-Man, I believe, was like his first real stories with Marvel, and then they did so well that he created Jessica Jones,
right,
which we all know about her history. And then because of his popularity and the fact that this dude, who before he hit Marvel, he was kind of famous because he had a bunch of independent stuff he did. He was always, he was best known because he was the guy that could do realistic dialogue, would focus on, not necessarily just like the superhero stuff, but like, background police stuff and stuff like that. Like he did, some of his early stuff was like a adaptation of a crime story that he did. So he used a lot of that bit of bang, bit of boom, Aaron Sorkin type of dialoguing that he does, and use that to take over Marvel, basically, because there was probably at one time, because he was so fast writing stuff, he wrote like every Avengers book. There was like 6 of them. He wrote Ultimate Spider-Man. He wrote Jessica Jones. So he was writing like 10 books a month. And then he was like one of the guys that was like, the big wigs, one of the executives who tried to get creative teams in and would spread their wings and bring people in and stuff like that. And so he became hugely, popular in Marvel, and for good. I mean, a lot of his stuff is good. A lot of it's redundant also. I'll give him that, but he does have some good thoughts, and his run on Ultimate Spider-Man has been fantastic and was fantastic. And so now the news broke last week, I think, that he has signed an exclusive with DC, which is one of those things that absolutely blows your mind, because it's one of those things like, going back to sports, you always want to have one of those players who plays on, you drafted them and they play on your team for their whole career. I've been lucky with both baseball and football. Cal Ripken Jr. of the Orioles, we drafted him, and he played his whole career with the Orioles. Ray Lewis, Ravens big star, who's actually going to probably punch his ticket to the Hall of Fame next year. Is when he's up for it. I think actually this year's Hall of Fame classes he's up for. He's probably going to get a first ballot Hall of Famer. He was with the Ravens for their whole career. We drafted him and did all that. And Joe Flacco, now apparently our quarterback, is one that he's,
wants to finish
drafted by us, and he wants to finish out his career. And then there are other people who, Kirby Puckett and Ken Griffey Jr. and stuff like that, guys who, they've
started
and stayed their whole. You kind of thought that that's what Brian Michael Bendis was going to do, because Marvel was the one that said, "Hey, we like your independent stuff. Do you want to work for us?" And then when he started doing all this stuff, he's like, "Man, he's never going to leave."
Which is good.
Yeah, but now he is.
But you got to wonder how they let him get away. I mean, did DC just like flash numbers that they couldn't match, which obviously must have happened, or maybe, I don't know, creator control of some things, which, for the big two is very rare. So,
or at the same time, maybe it was something as easy as, what, I'm bored with this. Yeah. I need a new challenge. I need a new adventure. Mm-hmm. And DC is going to be, well, hey, I can give you a whole new universe to play with, and we'll give you whatever you want. But there's certain limits. Mm-hmm. Look, and here's the thing: I'm okay with it. There's no problem with it. I'm excited to see what he does with it. But here's the thing: I don't really want him to jump right to Batman, because that's the most obvious, character that would fit Bendis. I'd like to see him try out some other characters, bring in some characters who, have been sort of pushed to the side a little bit, and bring them back to prominence, because that's what he did with the Avengers. Because remember, the X-Men were so prominent in the comic world, and the Avengers, they should have been, and Bendis has been on record saying, he said the Avengers should be just as hugely popular as the X-Men. They should have 20 books, because it's their greatest heroes of Marvel that aren't mutants together as a team. It's like this, it's their Justice League. I mean, is the Justice League in DC is their big seven, and you need to have something like that. And so that's what he brought to the table. He brought Wolverine in, he brought Spider-Man in, and then had Captain America and all that, and Doctor Strange, and did all. So they're big guys that everybody knew before the movies became hits. He brought these guys together and said, these are like the big guys, and we need to have them together, and we're going to sell lots of books. And gosh darn it, he was right, So I kind of want him to do something like that. What I would love to see? I would love to see him write the Legion now, because there is no Legion of Superheroes series on the brink out there now. But it's one of those comics that it is so confusing. It's hard to tell, because they're in the future. Because if stuff changes in the past, it changes their future. How do you combine that? I think I would like to see him take on the Legion. I think that'd be good. He might jump back and do, he might fall back. Like Manhunter is a really good example. Manhunter is the female lawyer by day, and at night is a vigilante, sort of like Daredevil, I guess. And you think, well, he wrote Daredevil. That would be an obvious thing for him to take on. Yeah, it would, but I don't want to see that. Yeah, I don't want to see that. I want to see his take on that. I want to see his take on, I don't know, maybe an Aquaman, or the Flash.
Well with that. Yeah, he'd match up well with Aquaman. I could see that.
I think he'd do really good with the Flash also, because remember, Barry Allen's a police officer, and he's always good with the police stuff as well. So, I like to see. So, we're waiting to see. It's great though. I love seeing the Instagram post that he's been posting. It says, "My day one research." And it's a pile of all these trades for DC. It's like, oh my god, there's some good shit on here. And it's like day two. It's like, here's some more. And it's another. And it's like, this is my life. And it's like, hashtag this is my life. That's what he's doing before he even starts writing. He's reading comics and researching. And
he's like, nope, I got to change that. Nope, got to change that.
Exactly. He's like, okay, let's see the Joker. Let's see. I can make a story. And then he writes all these little notes down, and then boom. Him doing Suicide Squad might actually be really entertaining as well. I wouldn't mind seeing that as well.
And, maybe he worked out a deal with them where they're like, you know what, we'll let you make some changes that will become canon. So, so he's like, oh, that would be kind of cool if he could, do that. And, or who knows, maybe DC was like, Marvel's kind of hurting right now. What can we do to drive a stake through them? Let's take their big guns away. And even if he doesn't do anything for us, he can't work for them.
Exactly. So. And there's also talk now that after Bendis dropped them, that Jonathan Hickman, who's been on Marvel for the longest time and is actually a pretty good writer as well, he's thinking about jumping ship and going to DC also. That would be really cool also. I'd like to see his take on on the Justice League particularly. I think Jonathan Hickman on the Justice League, because he had a great run of the Fantastic Four, and I think he would have done a really good job on, well, we'll see. That's not locked in stone yet, right. So we'll see. But yeah, Marvel's really that's all I got to say about that.
Well, they didn't help anything with keeping somebody that creative by saying that they want to go back and take their universe back to what it used to be. So they didn't help anything by doing that. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. But I thought that's like one of the big stories in the comic world, and it is. It's basically, it's like the Boston Red Sox selling Babe Ruth to the Yankees. Basically, it's like Marvel. The only problem with that allegory is that Marvel knew who they had, whereas the Red Sox didn't know who they had when they shipped him out, that he was going to be as good as he was. The last thing we'll talk about, then we'll hit Thor, is the Fox Disney deal that may or may not still happen. Now, what's your take on that, MJ?
When I heard this, and I know that it's not all Fox properties, but it is the Fox properties that matter to us. You know, they're little corner of the universe that has the mutants and everything in it. I think that it would be pretty awesome if they were to do that. You know, I think that it would finally give us, you know, we could see Avengers versus X-Men. We could see maybe a decent Fantastic Four, you know. So it's such a big deal. I mean, you know, Disney is so big already. You know, they own ABC, they own Marvel, the Lucasfilms. And now for them to purchase Fox too, I mean, I don't know. That's a lot. And plus, I'm not 100% sure I like what Disney does with certain properties. So I don't know if I would want them owning Fox, you know, because I like Fox. I like the stuff that they do. I like the fact that they put their own little spin on things. I don't know if I want them brought into the Disney camp, you know, so I kind of hope they hang. I mean, I'd like to see them work out a structured agreement, kind of like they could lend some characters the way they did with Spider-Man, but I don't think I want them owned by Disney. You know, Disney is a little too, I don't know.
It's a little too monopoly-esque, and you know that can be a problem, particularly because now that if they do end up signing the Fox thing, what's going to make Disney say, hey, you know what, Warner Brothers is out there. Warner Brothers is still really big though, and that's going to be a David and Goliath thing. I think that would be a good battle, but I could probably see Disney is way bigger, I think, than the WB. And if that's the case, then boom, guess what? You've got all DC under the same blanket. But now you're stuck with a big mass of Disney, and then you got all these little, and you need to have, yes, you're absolutely right. You need to have these individual spins on things. Right. Fox needs to have their own versions of characters, or they don't want to Disneyfy, you know, their characters. You know, Disney would be in the position to say, this is what we want to do with these characters, or these are what movies we want to do through the Fox banner, but they're still making the calls. Where it's I guess you could say a better allegory might be Image versus Marvel DC.
Okay,
you know?
Right.
Fox's Image, they're doing these, you know, crazy outland. Not that Fox is, but I mean, they're doing their own thing. And Marvel and DC are salivating the fact because they lost their big guns to Image. And gradually they've come back periodically, but there's the independent comics that Image is putting out is getting a lot more love than a lot of their stuff is. I mean, they're getting the salivated after awards and stuff like that. Image has won, I think, probably more awards than Marvel and DC has when it comes to their product. And the main reason is because they let the creators own the product. So you don't have this continuity issues, and you don't have, you know, that you got to follow a strict, well, no, you can't have this character in this scene like that. No, they can do whatever. They can kill their main character in their series if they want to. They don't care, you know. They can do whatever the hell they want because they own the property. They can sell the character to a movie or TV producer, and they can get the money. Whereas with Marvel, if, say, Michael Bendis built up the Avengers so much that you could conceivably say he was the driving force to the MCU because he built and made it look like, okay, the Avengers are actually more viable or just as viable as the X-Men. So, you know, Bendis did this, and they come in and they're like, let's make some movies with the Avengers characters. That's it, because that's what Wave 1 was all about, was getting the Avengers done. So you have someone like that, and they don't, and Bendis doesn't see a dime of that. They might give him, you know, some more money as a contract, but the money that the MCU has made goes in $5-10 billion. I mean, that goes to the pockets of Marvel Cinematic, the Marvel Productions, and the companies that distribute it. And Bendis, who I will give him credit, he's the one that made the Avengers viable and made this possible. He gets a credit maybe in the credits, and that's about it. Maybe a little bit more money in his contract, but that's I mean, that's it. Just like a little bit
bonus or something.
Yeah, bonus.
He's not sharing in what the executives and the producers and the universe, you know, that's a huge piece of the pie.
So now you have. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So now you have Kirkman, who sold Walking Dead to AMC, became a producer, and he's making bank on that because he's the creator of it, you know? So
well, I don't know. It would be good, but at the same time, I just think that Disney, it would be getting a little too big, you know? I just want them to work together, but I don't want them to own everything, you know? And then there's that whole thing of, you know, in 2019 that they're creating their own streaming service. I hate the thought of that. Because, you know, it's like they're going to take all the Netflix properties. Well, they're still not sure, but you know they will. Anything that they own, they're going to put it behind their own streaming service and be like, oh, hey, now if you want to, you know, enjoy Daredevil season 4, it's only on the Disney app. So that's another streaming service you have to, you know, subscribe to. And they're going to have their lousy creative team behind it. And I'm just like, oh, my God, you know, so.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, you know, people who wanted to, I mean, most people will have the DVDs and videos of the movies, but now you got to go to the streaming service to watch A Little Mermaid or Pocahontas or whatever. And then all the other, like the ABC products, you know, like the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and stuff like that, that's all going to go to this service as well. And just all the Disney movies are going to be taken off. And I mean, Netflix will be fine because they're already producing a bunch of, you know, of their own original series that they have no connection with anything else. But it's still going to hurt a little bit because now people are going to be like, you know what? And I'll be honest, the main reason why I signed up for Netflix is because of the Marvel things, which I'm sort of not hypocritical, but I haven't really fully watched all of them. So how am I doing? They're there. Yeah, exactly.
You got a year to watch them before they might disappear. So,
exactly.
You know, because I mean, that'll be like Jessica Jones. You know, all of those. I mean, that's some great stuff. But you know, Netflix, they're smart. You know, they've got their own content. That could be part of the driving force behind them going out and acquiring Mark Millar, and you know, all of his properties. So you know, you never know.
And actually, now that you mentioned that, I just want to throw something in there. This actually caught me by surprise also, because when I read that Mark Millar was going to be signed up for Netflix, I was going to assume that all of his products were going to go direct to Netflix. They were going to do shows and movies based on them, which is great, which is fine, because that's how Millar writes. If you've ever, you know, you've read his stuff, you know exactly. He writes it as, okay, this is a screenplay. You know, he's got all the beats and the hits and says, this is how we're going to do it and stuff like that. And, you know, draws characters that, and it was like, okay, this is an actress I want for this role. So we'll draw the character to look like this. Well, then I discovered that Netflix is not only going to be doing movies and TVs of his stuff, but they're actually going to be releasing comics. His first project with Netflix is actually a comic book. It's not a TV show, and it's not a movie. It's a comic book called The Magic Order. And it's going to be written by Mark Millar with art by Oliver Coipel, who is a really good artist. Did some like the Siege for Marvel when they did one of those crossovers. He's got a very clean, distinct line, and I like his stuff. And basically, what's going to probably happen is, I guess Netflix will release it as their own. This is a Netflix comic, you know, and it'll be bought and sold like a regular Netflix, you know, like a regular comic book company. And coming from Diamond as a brand manager, that basically means that someone, one of the brand managers, is going to have Netflix as their account. Which actually, let me think about it. It probably would have been me. Actually, I'm not making that up. I mean, because the way they did the way they set up the brand managers for comics was, there was the big office, the people who've been there for years and are like the bosses like that. They did the big ones, the Marvel, the DC, the Dark Horse, the Image. So they had their own things. So we were stuck with the independents, which is fine because there's a ton of independents out there that are still fairly big. At the time, IDW, which is now one of the big ones now, IDW was mine. And I'm always proud of the fact that I hope that in my 9 months as their brand manager, maybe I helped them get onto that line. Granted, it took them 3 or 4 years later that they became this big deal. But I still like to think that I had something to do with that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I actually got to meet Chris Ryle and all the guys who run that stuff, and they were really cool guys. Talked to them on the phone and stuff like that. So we divided up the independents, the names of their companies by the alphabet. So this brand manager would hit A through F, and then this one would be G through N, and then this one would be O through T, and then this one might be U to Z, or they might just have us 3. I think we had 3 or 4, and I think they were shorter than that, but that was how the setup is. So I think if I was thinking right, if I was still at Diamond right now, I would probably, if they're going under the name of Netflix Comics, I'd probably be their brand manager. So, just a little side note. I haven't been at Diamond in almost 11 years, so it's okay.
Netflix.
But Netflix, I mean, I'll have to wait and see how they do it, because I mean, they took a step when they sponsored the Halloween Comic Fest this past year. They were the sponsor of it. I guess they gave Marvel, DC, whatever money as long as they had some advertising. So if you bought some of these Halloween Comic Fest books, there were ads for Stranger Things season 2. So that's cool because it's Halloween, it's connected, you know, and why not? It works. Everybody likes Netflix. So I guess now, you know, with this coming up, that Millar is not only just going to be doing TV and movies with them. Now you have this comic series that if it takes off, hey, guess what? We have our next TV show.
Well, and you know what the good thing about that is too? It says that this genre is not in danger of disappearing, or, you know, it's not oversaturated, because, you know, Netflix, they have their pulse. They know what people watch. They know what they like. They know what the best sellers are. It's horror, it's sci-fi, you know, so if they're getting into the comic world, they know what their Marvel series is doing. So they're not stupid. They're like, okay, we got 1.5 years to replace these. And so they went out and they're getting some talent. So they're laying the groundwork. So that means that, you know, this genre is nowhere near topping out yet. So that makes me happy. It's good. Yeah.
And that's good also because, you know, and that's the one thing that we both keep trying to hammer into people's heads, that comics are not just superheroes.
Right. It's not just a cape.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. There is, if you go to your, and I always, when I do my show, The Comic Hall, I always either start the show off or end the show off with like, the reason why I'm doing this show and showing you this cool artwork and telling you the stories about it is I want you to go to your local comic book store and I want you to see if you can find something, because I'm not buying everything that's out, because A, it doesn't interest me, B, I don't have the financial stability, because there was like 100 comics that came out last week. I'm not buying all of them.
You can't read all that.
Exactly. So, you know, you go in there and you find something you like. Most comic book stores are designed and set up so that you can find what you're looking for. Mine has Marvel and DC on one shelf, the new books, and then it has the independents on another. And then when you get to the trades, they have Marvel section here, DC section here, independent section here. So if you like an independent book, and you see the issue like 11, it's like, man, I kind of like the artwork and it sounds like a neat story idea. They can say, we got the first 2 trades over there. You go over there, it's in alphabetical order. It's like, oh, here they are, boom, boom, there you go, you got a sale. Right. And you get caught up real easily. And then at the end of and this is in my new store now, at the end of their building, they have the old racks, which are the ones that are comics that are 2 to 3 months old before they put them in the back issue bin. That way, I like how they do that, because again, like if you come in and you see like issue 3 of a comic and you look at it, it's like, I kind of like that, or I didn't know this book was out. They might still have issues 1 and 2 out for regular price. Right. Down at the end, and they're doing it because they want to get rid of excess stock. They don't want to have, you know, like 20 copies put in their back order shelves and they can't return them. So they're going to try to sell them as much the best they can. And then if they happen to end up with 20 copies, so be it, and they'll handle it. But they prefer to keep it out there so that people come in and it's like, you know what, I want to get 1 or 2. They might be down there. You go down there, guess what? You got, like, I'll give you a good example. I'm starting to get back into the comic hack slash. It first came out in around the time I was working at Diamond. It's about a woman, rather it's like a girl. She's probably in early 20s, and her mother. We learned her mother was a serial killer, the cafeteria lady. She like poisoned millions of kids or something like that, and it screwed her head up. And so she ended up deciding she wanted to hunt down serial killers and kill them before they became a threat. And so the first person she took out was her mom. But now we're talking like serial killers, like, like a Freddy Krueger type or a Jason or a Mike Myers type. And then also and then she gets into more of the supernatural stuff, but then also like the regular horrific Jeffrey Dahmer types as well. So she does all that. So the comics focus on those stories, and I loved them. They were really great. They are, she's screwed up in the head, so she also wears, slinky outfits, so she's sexy. And I'm a guy, I admit it. I like to see her bra and panties, and she's kicking ass and stuff like that. And she's got a bodyguard who is like a demonic being or something like that helps her out. And it was always great. It was just a bunch of miniseries. And then when I left Diamond and my money situation got a little bit worse because I had a damn kid. I love my kid. I love my little girl. She's gonna be 11 on your birthday. Your birthday with my daughter. So and you know that. But yeah, she's getting older. But I mean, you can't. Yeah, the money's got to go to the kids. I mean, yeah, comics are great and all that, but you know what? They're just comics. This is a living, breathing person. You have to take care of them. So we pay for daycare, we pay for food, stuff like that. And now, luckily now with, getting through both kids and they're old enough to be on their own now, we're going to ship them out of the house now. Exactly. They're like, comics, yes. Because it's the first time in a long time that I've been buying comics regularly for over a year now. I hadn't done that for a while. There are periods where I buy for like 6 months, and then financial issues would close it down for like 6 months, and then I'd pick it back up again, gradually starting off slow, and then it would pick up again, and I hit the pinnacle, and then got to drop it again. So I was like, okay, the most recent time period ended about 2 years ago. I was like, okay, I'm going to start buying comics again, right around the time the new 52 came out. So I started buying them, and then I realized that I haven't had a break in like a year and a half. Cool. I've been buying comics every week now, and we're still surviving. I mean, we have some tight weeks where, the money, but that's not just my comics. I mean, that's other stuff we have to deal with the house. And now the kids that are older, they have their own set of issues now where we have to pay for sports equipment. And my daughter is doing the trombone, so we have to rent that and stuff like that. So, but at the same time, both Donna and I have more money, so we have more money that we can spend. So I don't feel quite as guilty spending it on comics now because we still are able to survive. So, but that's good. So we'll see what happens. All right. So we covered that. We talked to Disney streaming service. We did that already. So we did that without even me mentioning it. So good job. You brought it up on your own. Awesome. So let's talk about the main event, Thor Ragnarok. Let me get your, once again, MJ and I will, when we talk this, we talk spoilers. We will, drop some spoilers. To be honest, there's a few, but to be honest, this one really didn't seem like a major. I mean, it was its own entity, which is great. Yeah, it's set up. It's set up what's going to happen in Infinity War, and then something happens to Thor, but that's really about it, to be honest. And Odin, obviously, but Loki pretty much stays the same, as he is.
Loki is Loki. So.
Yeah, he's still Loki, because even though now he appears to be more on the side of good, he can change on a dime, and that's the thing.
That's part of what this movie was. He's flip flopping back and forth. He's out for Loki and what he can get and what's going to benefit him. So that's never changed since he was introduced into the universe. Into the cinematic universe.
Yeah, and I like the fact that the old Loki, I'm guaranteeing you this appeared, the old Loki reappeared when in the middle of the final battle with Hela in Asgard, and Thor sends him down to get Surtur's helmet, and he walks back and he sees the Tesseract that he's been so involved with. He's like, he's eyeing it, and then it cuts. Right. But I would guarantee you that he's probably got it somewhere in his pocket.
He lifted that, so he's like, I remember how much fun this thing was. So, give me just your general take on. I'll give you my general take on. Then we'll hit some certain points. I thought it was really good. I thought that it was what Thor should always have been. He doesn't take himself seriously. Even probably in the comics, his teammates don't take him seriously. The fact that he's just like this major powerhouse is what, makes people probably put up with him. And again, why should he take anything seriously? He's a god. He's just like, everything's fun to him. You're getting the hell beat out of you. Oh, it's fun. This is all good. But there was a couple of times where I kind of thought maybe the humor, not that they went too far with it, but it was just like, so heavy-handed and so obvious in your face. And the part that just, I'm like, okay, I can't take this if it happens again, was when he kept singing that song to the Hulk, trying to calm him down or whatever. I'm like, okay, the first time, yes, that was very funny. But then it just kept going and going. And then I'm going to do it again. I'm like, you should have edited that out or told him, okay, we don't need to do this anymore. So just things like that. I just, that was really the biggest flaw I had with it.
I agree with you almost 100% on that. And then the fact that then Ruffalo's like, would you stop saying that? Which was the funny point of it. But it would be funnier if maybe he did it 2 times. I mean, yes, we know that the rule of 3 is the comedic part, but that's absolutely, that was absolutely annoying. You do it the first time, that's good, but then we do it the second time, you bring in Ruffalo's response to it, stop doing that, then that's funny, that's the joke. And it was still funny when it happened, but at the same time it's like, okay, this is bad. The other part that got me also was at the beginning where he's chained up talking to Surtur, and him and Surtur are having this serious conversation, and then Thor's like, oh wait, and he's
gotta come back around again.
It's funny, but at the same time it's like you're having a serious discussion with a being that's going to destroy or wants to destroy. Hi, baby. We were just talking about you. We were just talking about maybe a girl. Oh, it's funny, Noel, real quick. Mr. MJ shares your birthday. Yeah, he was born December 12th also.
Hello.
He said hello. But yes, the first time was funny, but then they did it again, and then they did it again. I was like, and then I felt like Surtur, and I looked at Surtur, and he was like, what the? And so I was like, okay, it's funny, but it's too
back
funny.
It off a little bit.
Back it off a little bit, but at the same time, I like the usage of the pop song, similar to what Guardians of the Galaxy did, particularly Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin. They used it twice in the film, and it worked pretty good about that. I thought Carl Urban's Executioner was pretty good. He, was kind of that comedic part. You see him trying to impress the chicks, and he's ignoring what Thor is saying. And I thought Hemdall should have been in it more, Idris Elba. I would have loved to see Idris getting involved in the final battle with them as well. I liked the Hulk battling Fenris, but again, I would have liked to see him, after beating Fenris, coming in and helping them out, take out Hela and battling that as well. I would have liked to see a little bit more of that. But no, in general, it was a fun and entertaining film. I thought Jeff Goldblum's Grandmaster was absolutely the way it should be, and I don't think it was Jeff Goldblum, and I don't think it was too overplayed. Yes, he was doing a lot of the Goldblum ticks and stuff like that, but at the same time, and I don't know what it was just the way he looked or the way he talked or the way that he just seemed like he was so silly that you also got kind of frightened by him a little bit, because he sort of has that look on his face,
like any minute.
Exactly. Like, and also like, oh, my champion's gone, blah, 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 like that. But it seems like, he could lose it at any second. Like, I almost wish that in the end credit sequence where he is found by those raiders, and he's like, I did my part, making this a great, coup and stuff like that. I think what would have been really funny if he ended, where he's like this he's like almost cowardly. He's like, yay, hooray us. And then he lets loose all his power and kills everybody. I think that would have been really a really good sequence. But other than that, a lot of it was, the humor was a lot more, it was a lot more in your face. And in fact, it reminded me a heck of a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy.
It did. Almost like they knew that Guardians of the Galaxy was funny, so they're like, make this funny like that. But, the Guardians, a lot of that humor was a little more subtle. This is just like, we're going to hit people over the head with it and make them laugh. We're going to make them think it's funny. They're not going to have to think about it. It's just, blah, this is funny. And again, blah, again.
And then sometimes the humor's used appropriately for putting the exclamation point on something, particularly when Thor's having this conversation with Valkyrie and he's bouncing the ball out the window and it bounces back and hits him in the head. I wasn't expecting that. I really wasn't. It surprised me, and it made me chuckle the minute I saw it, because I was like, that's actually kind of funny. But
it still cracked the window. It's like, okay, it serves its purpose.
So it seemed, and then I think the whole Thor going to the Quinjet and trying to go through the different names, most powerful Avengers, stuff like that. I thought the Point Break story was funny because that referred back to the Avengers.
Right.
But the whole sequence is like, okay, you know,
we get it.
That's the one thing, and I agree with you on that. I think you need to have comedy works in the rule of 3. They sort of pushed it to the rule of 5 almost, and that's
and more than once they did that.
Yeah, so. Exactly.
But, you know, overall it was good, and there were some parts of it that, you know, I think they got the timing of it just right. The dragon head sliding across the floor, those women, and then the eye rolling up. That was like, to me, that was perfect.
It was, absolutely, and then the gut splattering all over the women and the executioner, and he's like, oh man, and then he's cleaning up afterwards because of the mess. And I liked Cate Blanchett was really good as Hela, and I started thinking about what she was saying, and she kind of had a point. I mean, let's face it. I mean, Odin had secrets. We all know that. Odin's Odin. He would always have secrets like that. And the fact that he kept his firstborn child, I'm assuming it's with was it Frigga, Rene Russo, whatever. I'm assuming that was their child because that made her and Thor be actual blood relative. And I wanted to see a little bit more of the brother and sister interaction. I think that would be nice. You just met your sister. She's evil and trying to destroy everything. But I would have maybe liked another scene, maybe a quiet scene of like the two of them, you know, because they're relatives and just sort of feeling each other out. You got a little bit of that when they face each other the first time. But, you know, particularly when it says, hello, sister. And I also love the fact that Loki, even though he still feels like he's not a part of the family, but he still does. And the fact that, you know, we have to go back and stop our sister, I thought that was a great line, because it means that Loki, even though he is a frost giant, that he still feels connected to the Asgardians.
Family raised him. Yeah. And I think you're right. I think that they missed an opportunity in the throne room when Thor was sitting on the throne and she comes in. I think that would have been an opportunity for them to have had some really meaningful, you know, back and forth rather than just rushing to fight. So
and I understand that because they wanted to probably make this a short and sweet film. I think originally Wakiki wanted to make it an hour and a half, but he realized that there was a lot more that he wanted to get in there, so he was able to push it to 2 hours. But he said, I don't want to go past like 2:10 at the most. And in the end, it really was about a 2-hour window, because I remember I watched it in IMAX. It was the only time I could go see it, at 7 o'clock in the evening, and that's fine. I mean, it's a little extra money, but it was nice. It was really nice. After the trailers, I looked at my watch to see what time it started. It was 7:21, and then when I checked to see when the movie ended before the mid-credit sequence, I checked. It was 9:21. So it was 2 hours almost exactly. But then you had the whole 10 minutes worth of credits and then the 2 credit scenes, which we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, I wish that would have been a really good scene to have maybe a little interaction between the two of them. Maybe even have Loki in there as well, because yes, he might not be a blood relative, but let's face it, he's still related to her in some form or another. And to have the two of them, because they would probably match up a little bit better. Because of the way they are. But he was busy doing his thing with the aliens, which was of the Scar aliens, which I thought was a great thing too. The British Cockney rock pile was kind of funny too.
Oh, bye, Doug. Another Doug.
And then the little like slug thing with the knife blade arms. So I mean, the only way he talks is by making his little comments like, you know, like that. Yeah, that's right. You're absolutely right there. You know, Ricky or whatever it was.
No, I thought that it had some great elements to it. You could tell they had fun doing it. So yeah, no, I liked it. I did think that maybe this is just me. What did you think about the CGI Hulk? I was like, not the same one they used in the Avengers. He looked kind of. They didn't quite put the money into it that they should have.
Yeah, he looked a little off. I mean, they made him look a lot more like Ruffalo, which is fine, but it wasn't. You know, when you expect to see the Hulk, you expect to see more big. You know, like the one of the Avengers was the big brutish.
Yeah, the brute. Yeah,
the big one, and they made him more of a. Okay, it's Mark Ruffalo, but now he's gained a couple feet and is a little bit bigger, but he's not. He was he was almost on par with this, like same size chest wise and stuff like that with Thor.
Mhm.
And you'd think that the Hulk would in some form would be a much bigger hulking. Right.
On a war world where he's like a giant gladiator, he should have just been like the Hulk from the Avengers, the one that was smashing all those aliens. So
and it was I think giving him the ability to speak was good, because that way you can keep the Hulk in it more, and still, because one of the best runs of the Hulk was Peter David's Hulk, where he made Banner's brain be in the Hulk. Right. The Hulk was the Hulk the whole time, and he had Banner's brain. So here's this guy, the big giant Hulk with the big hands, mixing with little chemicals and stuff like that. It's a little funny thing, but it's a needless thing like that. And Ruffalo seemed a little off also, but I guess he had to, because he hadn't been Banner in like 2 years or something like that. So it made sense that but he seemed a little off. His throat seemed a bit more constricted. It didn't quite sound like the Mark Ruffalo that I like, but it was fun to see him in there as well. And like that, and we can't be remiss about Valkyrie, who was I thought she was fantastic, and the
great
fact
addition.
She's a great addition, and I loved the interaction between them when they realized that they were all Asgardians. Particularly, I like the scene with her and Loki. When he didn't quite realize it yet, but then when he had an idea, and then when he saw the tattoo, he's like, "Oh, you're a Valkyrie," and then she like ends up trying to beat the shit out of him. But then he uses his mind power to get to see her history, and I think that was a really interesting take on as well. And we can't be remiss with Loki. Loki was, as always, Tom Hiddleston was fantastic.
Knocked it out of the park. Yep.
Probably, to be honest, probably the best part in the film, maybe. I mean, look, Hemsworth was fantastic. His Thor is great and all that, but whenever Loki was on screen, and it seemed like he wasn't on as much. Right. Did you realize that?
Yeah, it seemed like he was a big part of it, but physically he wasn't there a lot.
So. I mean, I loved, and the two of them have such great interaction. Him and Hemsworth have such a great bond. They've worked together. This is their fourth time working together. So they have a nice, and they more along the lines of those two than the others. They play brothers, so they need to have that familiarity and relationship. And I think the two of them, I think it's actually perfect. I mean, the whole, I'm not going to do need help or get help. Or whatever. I'm not doing get help. I'm not doing get help. And all of a sudden, get help. And he's like, I really didn't like that. And Thor's like, I kind of did, actually.
Yeah, it's like things like that. I'm like, okay, that was funny. They did have some good time. The action was great in it too. Just the opening scene with Surtur and the whatever they were, all his minions and everything. I thought that was really good. And I loved seeing Hela take on the entire Asgardian army by herself. Like, all right, that was pretty cool. But did you notice that she killed the Warriors 3? But you rarely even noticed it. It was so quick. It's like, oh, they should have put up a little bit more of a fight, I would think.
Well, I think to be honest, I would have liked them to put a little more fight. But let's take a look at it. When she shows up on the Rainbow Bridge and they're guarding it, they're not expecting her. So in the second she throws the knives, they didn't have a chance. If they would have had a chance, then it might be more interesting. Whereas Hogan had the chance, and so he survived the longest until she. But yeah, I agree with that. I think it's kind of a shame that they got rid of him, because Warriors 3 are such a big part of the group. And also, I missed Sif. Now, I understand that the actress was working on her TV show and she couldn't do it. And I think they're just going to use like a throw-off line by saying, she was banished by Odin under the guise of Loki, like Hemdall was, and eventually she'll make her way back, or I'm hoping she might not have been in Asgard, because or else she's dead.
She's dead. There is no more Asgard.
maybe they send her on some sort of scouting mission to Jotunheim or something like that, and that's where she's doing stuff. But I mean, I think Valkyrie filled the void of a Sif, though I would have preferred to see Sif in there as well, and I would have liked to see maybe the interaction between Sif and the Valkyrie, because you would think that maybe Sif sort of has maybe a little bit of resentment towards the Valkyrie because she's female and she's not a Valkyrie, and the Valkyries are more highly praised as being warriors than, say, Sif is, even though she's a badass warrior. I think, and then the fact is, you see those little glimpses of potential romance between Thor and Valkyrie. Only a couple times, but it was like, that's like, you know what? That's forcing it a little bit. Yeah, I know Jane Austen, or not Jane Austen, Jane Foster pushed you to the curb. I know that, but you know, you belong with Sif. You belong with Sif. That's just the way it is. Where you belong with Jane Foster doesn't matter, but you know, bring her back as well. So I like that.
I like the fact that Hela, that it kind of hinted at, well, I guess it showed that she was the original wielder of Mjolnir. So, you know, maybe that's why she was able to destroy it so easily. She's like, okay, I remember you. And like, if I can't have you, he's certainly not going to have you. So
exactly, kaboom, like that. And then she was great. And then destroying the and everything she said was right. You know, she destroyed the painting at the top that showed everyone being good and happy, and then showing Odin being Lord God Odin with her at his side being so. That wasn't just painted there by her. She didn't like magically go, okay, I need to prove that I'm right. You know, boom, I'm going to make this painting up. No, that was a real painting. And then when she found the dead warriors underneath the throne room, again, that proves her point that at one time Odin was a dick. He was a bastard. And I guess we kind of got that a little bit in the original Thor when he took down the frost giants. But at the same time, though, not as big of a dick as we thought he might have been. And yes, and then all of a sudden, and then she says, well, he got a conscience and felt guilty, and so he banished me. And it's like, and to be fair, you got to say, you know what, that is kind of shitty. Your only daughter who's doing exactly what you wanted her to do.
And he's like, I need to have the richest, most powerful, you know, realm in all the realms. I want all the gold. I want all the peoples. Go out and vanquish everybody else until I get what I want. And she does it for you. And then all of a sudden you're like, you're a little too bad. So you go play over that corner and you can't come back anymore.
Exactly. And so it made me think about it. It's like, you know what? She had a point.
Yeah.
You know, and yes, to be honest, if you are going by royal decree, she has every right to be the leader of Asgard because she is the firstborn. She is related to the Odin, who is the king. So it doesn't matter if she's female or male. You're the firstborn. You're going to be the queen. You deserve to be the queen. So, you know, and that's what makes Hela an interesting villain. Not only did Cate Blanchett knock it out of the park, she did a fantastic job with that. I loved her switching back and forth from her, you know, her regular hairstyle to her armor helmet. So I thought that was freaking awesome. It was like, oh shit, I'm gonna get some ass kicking now. Boom, I'm gonna get my helmet on. I'm gonna kick your ass. That was fantastic too. And yeah, I mean, it's entertaining. It's fast paced. The humor, I agree. You and I agree with that. If there was a problem with it, it was a little too forced in some cases. It works in some cases. Other cases it doesn't. I mean,
it hit more than it missed.
Yeah,
but it was still there. But it did hit more than it missed. And and Doctor Strange, you know, I loved his appearance. I mean, he's a lot more comfortable now in his role as the Sorcerer Supreme than he was in his own movie. I mean, just, you know, his interaction with them, and like, he's like, okay, Loki, enough of you. So he's like, I'm mad, I've had enough of this.
And I love how Loki's like, I've been falling for 30 minutes. And then how he just kept transporting Thor. It's like, and Thor's like, what the frig, man? And then he started getting seasick. I was like, man, just stop it. And it's like, just stop it. And Doctor Strange's like, sure. And then does it again. But no, that was great. And I liked the scene with Odin in Norway, which makes sense because they're Norse gods. Norway appears to be where they are. And the fact that, you know, yes, it is technically Loki's fault that he put him in a home and then transported him on Earth. But you know what, Thor? He was going to be dying anyway. He was an old man. It doesn't matter.
Like beyond ancient. He's like, you know.
Exactly. It doesn't matter. And so, you know, I can see your anger towards your brother, and I think I'm glad you finally got over it, because, you know, you do have that relationship with your brother. But it made sense, and it was nice to see Anthony Hopkins. It was great. We got to talk about that opening scene in Asgard where Loki is Odin, and he's just lying on his back and he's eating the grapes, but it's Anthony Hopkins doing it. It's like, man, it's really funny. This is Anthony Hopkins, who, you know, is Hannibal Lecter, dude's won an Oscar, and he's sitting there going, "Oh, I know this is great, yeah, great. Oh, yes, we look at this." And then I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and then he's having them put on the play. That was like, the big giant statue of Loki, and it's like, oh, and of course the actors that played Thor and Loki in the play, that just I thought that was brilliant. So.
You know who they were, right?
Yeah, Matt Damon, and that was his brother. Chris
Hemsworth's brother. And then you had Sam Neill playing Odin, which is fantastic also. And then the big Loki statue. And that's exactly, I think, when it clicked for Thor, when he got back to Asgard. And I think what made it, when the executioner said that Heimdall had been sent out of Asgard, that sort of said, wait a second, that's not quite right. Then he sees the statue of Loki, and then he's like, damn it. I know exactly what's going on, because he knows his brother is like, that son of a bitch. Yeah. And so then he sees the play and sees Thor acting like a total whiny little bitch. He's like, oh, my brother, oh my God. And Loki's all like, oh, it is so hard, like that. And then he sees Odin doing that, eating the grapes with the chicks around him, and he's like, there's no way my dad would do that. And that's how he knew. And it's like, hello, father. Yeah. And then just threw his hammer at him, which was great.
Like, nothing will keep it coming back to my hand, not even your face. I thought that was great.
Oh, that was amazing. And then we got to talk about the setup for Infinity War, the mid-credit sequence, and everything that led up to that. So now, spoiler alert again, Asgard has been destroyed, which I thought was actually a really good, interesting twist to the story, because you would think that, they're going to beat Hela and they'll keep Asgard being, they'll repair it, they'll fix it up, they always do. And then once Thor loses his eye, and basically that pretty much writes in stone, he's going to be the next leader, because Odin only had one eye also. He has to make, and then even Loki goes so far as to say, I'll abide by what you say. You're the boss now. And that was kind of interesting as well, because it was just, the scenario was, it was a no-win situation. Hela was going to be as powerful as she was until Asgard fell.
Yeah, exactly. Growing in power as long as Asgard was there. So
I mean, they unleashed everything on her. Loki did his stuff. Valkyrie did her stuff. Thor did his stuff. And she still was coming back at him. And so it was like, we got to do something. So I think sending Loki to do the job at the same time while he made the decision, maybe in the back of his mind, it makes it easier for him to handle, because he said it was actually Loki who turns the skull. I could always justify the fact that he was the one that did it and destroyed Asgard, even though it was my decision. And I'm not saying that's what he was doing, because he knew what he was doing, but maybe in the back of his mind, that's a way to justify being able to handle that he allowed Asgard to get destroyed. But the fact is, they saved everybody in the spaceship, which is actually something that happened in the comics, and they brought them to Earth, and they were going to have New Asgard. That was a setup for Siege. So I think that we're going to do something similar to that. And then, so you have Loki, you have Valkyrie, you have the Hulk, and you have Thor, along with all the remaining Asgardians in the one spaceship, and they're flying towards Earth, and all of a sudden, a big giant ship shows up out of nowhere, and we all know who that is.
It dwarfs their big ship,
which then leads me to believe that we knew Thor was going to be involved with it, but now looks like Loki's going to have a hand in it. Looks like the Hulk will be in it as well, which I figured we figured he probably would be too. And Valkyrie's going to be in it, which is really, because they're all on board that ship. And I don't think they're just going to, they might. I think we're going to see that sequence maybe in Infinity War, or we might not. It might be, we all know that, the mysterious film, that the footage they showed at the Vegas thing has Thor flying through space and hitting the Guardians of the Galaxy spaceship. That might happen if that's going to lead to that. But we'll see what happens. Then it makes sense. But that means, though, that this is going to be a big film. And we knew it was going to be. They brought back all the Avengers. Spider-Man's going to be involved with it. Doctor Strange is going to be involved with it. The Guardians are going to be involved with it. And then all of a sudden now you've got all these other minor characters. You've got Valkyrie's going to be involved with it. Black Panther, apparently his female bodyguards are going to be involved in it as well, because Denai, who's in Walking Dead, she said she had to film, she was done her role in Infinity War. So she's actually going to be in it as well. And that's one of the reasons why, and Tony and I talked about this on Thursday. We did the snooze. I think that's one of the reasons why Denai's Michonne has not been in The Walking Dead so much this season, because the actress was filming Black Panther, so at the same time, so that made sense. So we're going to get all that. Captain Marvel's not coming till the second one, but we know that for a fact is now a fact. So that's going to be good. But yeah, this film, I mean, I think we're going to get really excited about, because supposedly the trailer is going to come out. Probably it makes sense to come out this week because we have Justice League coming out and they can attach it to Justice League. And at the same time, you got Thanksgiving. If you don't want to attach it to Justice League because it's competing, which I don't think is a real thing, because I got the Justice League trailer with the Thor Ragnarok, so they don't really care. They picked the trailer singing that, okay, you're coming to see Thor Ragnarok, you're gonna like other comic book movies, so we'll show you the other one. So I would assume we'll probably see Infinity War attached to Justice League. If not, it'll be one of the Thanksgiving movies, Coco's, Disney's Coco or whatever. So.
And like you said, it's going to be a massive movie. I mean, I really think that Infinity War is probably going to be, from a money-making standpoint, it's going to be billion easy. So, it's just how big is it going to be? So.
I think we could make the case that it's probably going to break the record for highest gross of a week. I really think it's going to do at least. I would not be surprised to say 250. As opening weekend just in America. I do not. I would not, because right now, I think, does Batman Superman hold that record now?
I think for the opening weekend.
For opening weekend, the Avengers did for a while, but I think Batman Superman beat it by like $10 million or something like that. So it's still in the 220 range. I think 250 is not unreasonable. Maybe 235. But I think I mean it's going to be the first weekend in May as always. You're going to have to
own that month. Yeah,
it is totally. Because, and then let's face it, you're not just going to be focused on, it's just going to be Thor, Iron Man. No, it's going to be the Guardians of the Galaxy. It's going to be Iron Man. It's going to be Captain America. It's going to be Spider-Man. So Doctor Strange. So everybody that you liked and movies you've seen. If you might not have if you weren't a fan of Iron Man, but might have been a fan of the Guardians of the Galaxy, you're going to want to go see the new Guardians of the Galaxy because they're in this. So I think you're going to get everybody. Yeah, I totally. We can talk about it when we get closer to it, but I truly think that 250 is not out of the realm of possibility as a record breaking, and I think it's going to probably be the highest grossing film of all time until maybe the sequel comes out.
Right.
So absolutely, and I think Justice League is going to do well, but gross wise, but I don't know if I don't know if it's going to crack 200. It might be in the 180. I think I'm looking at 175. I think 175 is a reasonable number for Justice League. I mean, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll be the first to admit it. But if it's less, I can understand that as well. It's still November. It's not a summertime thing, so it's be harder.
But then again, I don't think there's anything to compete with it until the next Star Wars comes out in December. So it could have a long run if it gets some good word of mouth going, and people aren't just like, if it doesn't have that Batman, Superman, bad word of mouth that starts to leak, it could have a good run.
Yeah, so, I mean, we've talked about how much I hated the idea of it, but it's one of these films that I might actually consider seeing in the movie theater. Probably not opening weekend because I think it's going to be insane, but maybe over Thanksgiving holiday or something like that. The next week might not be a bad, and that's everything else. You got Thanksgiving weekend coming up in 2 weeks, so it'll do well the first weekend, or maybe it won't do as well. Maybe it'll hit like 125, but then it might lose like maybe 5% in Thanksgiving weekend because you're going to have more people go see it or maybe they're going to wait to go see it because they know they've got a 4-day weekend. In some cases, I have a 4-day weekend. A lot of people have a 4-day weekend, or they'll be with their family and the family want to do something instead of spending time together. Let's go see a movie so we're not talking to each other. It's always possible. So it should be good. So I do recommend it. I do wish they might have dialed back the humor a little bit and maybe added a little bit more of the pathos and stuff like that. I like the fact that it seemed like it was a nonstop thrill ride going for only about a little bit over 2 hours. I thought that was good because sometimes you get into the 215 and 220s and there's certain scenes that are like, okay, you can move on now. Let's get to the main story. We got it. So. Yeah. But yes, highly recommend on that. So, and we forgot to mention this. I mentioned it before the show. I thought this was hilarious. The Willy Wonka theme. We talked about that when Thor, and this is, if you haven't seen Thor Ragnarok, and Willy Wonka. The original is the one I'm thinking about with Gene Wilder. There's a scene where Thor has been captured by the Grandmaster, and by Valkyrie, sending him to the Grandmaster, and he's going through this real weird psychedelic thing with the colors and someone intoning, talking. He's like, "You have been chosen to be the champion of the Grandmaster," and if you listen to the music, it is the Willy Wonka theme. And I was telling MJ before the show, I was like, I was cracking up is the minute that I realized, like, where does I hear that music from? And then when it hit a certain point early on, I was like, oh shit, that's Willy Wonka. So I laughed out loud, and I was the only one in the theater who was laughing. And I was like, what's the matter? Don't you realize this is Willy Wonka's theme? It's got the because remember, there's a scene in the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory where Gene Wilder's on the boat and all the psychedelic stuff's going on, and it's not quite the same theme, but it's giving you that audio. The audio clue is that, remember that scene in Willy Wonka, and here's the theme from Willy Wonka. It's not the same music, but they were the same movie. Right. This is what I'm trying to say. I thought that was freaking hilarious, and I thought it was extraordinarily clever, and nobody else got it in the theater. I was like, wow.
It was fun. That was fun. Yes.
So that's worth it for that. So I think right now all we got left is just a bunch of little bullet points, boom, 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 and then we will be out of here. So let me see. Bullet points. What is? Oh, the Incredibles 2. Remember the Pixar? That's coming out in June. I'm excited for that, and
I'm excited for that.
I mean, it's not necessarily a comic book, but let's face it, it's basically the Fantastic Four.
Yes. And it is, in my opinion, still my favorite Pixar movie. So,
And the fact that they got the exact same writer-director to do it, and they're making a sequel, and I think it's going to be amazing. That trailer is supposed to come out this week also, because I'm betting it's probably going to be attached to Coco, which is the Pixar movie that's coming out at Thanksgiving. And it might even come out again. Once again, the trailers are before movies. Like if you're coming to see Justice League, you obviously like superhero movies. Right. Boom, here's a superhero movie and The Incredibles. So I would say that this week, if we could get Infinity War and The Incredibles 2 trailers, I think this will be an amazing week trailer-wise.
Yeah.
So keep your eye on your social media. Or if you watch TV, they probably air it like on Entertainment Tonight and stuff like that. Keep your eye on that, because I'm pretty much guaranteeing that either this week or early next week for Thanksgiving week, it's going to come out before it gets attached to the movies. The old days, remember the old days where you'd have to wait to actually physically go to the movie to see it? Yeah. Not anymore.
Yeah. I think that's why I still panic if I feel like I'm being late getting to a movie. I'm like, no, I have to see the trailers. I can see the same trailers on YouTube, but I'm like, no, I have to see them.
What the hell did I write here? Must not. Oh yeah, Supergirl cast Brainiac 5. We'd mentioned the Legion earlier. The Supergirl TV show appears that they've already introduced what's his face, Mon-El, who was a member of the Legion. So now Brainiac 5 is going to be cast, and so he's going to be showing up in an episode of Supergirl soon enough. So it looks like Supergirl's going to be playing the Legion game a little bit, which I think is actually really good. So I didn't realize this. The Sci-Fi Channel, I knew they were doing this, but I didn't know they were doing this. Sci-Fi Channel is starting to do a lot more comic book adaptations now for TV shows. They've got Happy coming up in December about the former police officer who was found to be crooked or something, and now he's like a thug or something like that, and he sees a giant cartoon blue horse. That's based on a comic book that I think Garth Ennis wrote. Or Warren Ellis, Garth Ennis or Warren Ellis, one of those guys wrote that book. So they're going to do that. They also are going to be doing a TV show version of Deadly Class, which is a Image comic about a high school for assassins. And I didn't realize that they were doing a Deadly Class show till I saw this article that they have cast Benedict Wong, who plays Wong in the Doctor Strange movie, and Henry Rollins in, I guess, roles of the teachers. So that could be an interesting take as well. And then we were talking about you mentioned how you thought Netflix is building with Mark Millar. They're building their own, thinking that they're going to lose the Marvel properties. Let's bring our own. We talked about Ellen Page earlier. She's been cast in a version of The Umbrella Academy, which is a comic that Dark Horse did, which is going to be on Netflix. So that's coming up too. So that's another comic book thing that, as you can say, might fill the void for the Marvel series. We forgot to mention Punisher's coming up. Is it this week? Next week?
It's this week. Same as Justice League. Yeah.
So
Marvel once again, they got to, we'll just take a little bit away from them.
Stupid Marvel. Yeah. Stupid Marvel. So talking about that, let's see. New Star Wars trilogy was announced. Rian Johnson, who's directing The Last Jedi, has announced that they're going to be doing a new trilogy after this one's over. I think we kind of knew that was going to happen because once Disney bought the rights to Star Wars, they said they wanted to do a Star Wars movie every year. Right. So they did the new trilogy. Then they're doing these solo, like the Rogue Ones, Han Solos next year. They have an Obi-Wan one coming up soon, and some other stuff as well. So that could be kind of interesting. So we'll see. I'm going to talk Star Wars some other time because next month is Last Jedi, and also it's going to be the last year we can talk about the 40th anniversary of Star Wars. So I'm thinking I might do a special Star Wars show sometime in December. So I might invite you on for that one, MJ, if you don't mind, and a few other people as well. Now, I don't remember. Are you a Doctor Who fan?
Not really. Okay. I've tried. I just, for whatever reason, could never really get into it. But, I know about the new season coming up, the new Doctor. So, I might try getting back into it again. So
I think I am because basically it's a clean slate for the most part. It's going to be female Doctor. Stephen Moffat, who's been running the show since Russell Davies left, he's out the door also. So it's going to be like almost all completely brand new. I just want to mention that they had pictures of her new outfit. I absolutely adore it. Yes, it looks like it looks like Mork with the rainbow suspenders, but someone made a good point. Is like it looks like an alien dressed themselves. And let's face facts, Doctor Who is an alien. I mean, Two Hearts. He's a Time Lord. I mean, he's not an Earthling. He looks like one, but he's not. So I like that. I think that's really cool. They have cast. Shazam appears to be making a big deal. Zachary Levi's playing Captain Marvel / Shazam in the DC movie. They also cast Asher, someone like that, as Billy Bassett. He's a Disney Channel kid. I mean, people who watch I don't know him either. But the fact is, Shazam's going to happen now. I mean, Zachary Levi as Captain Marvel. It'll be okay because everyone's like, he's too skinny. Well, you know what? So is Chris Evans. Yeah. So is Chris Hemsworth. So is Chris Pratt. And they all bulk themselves up. Like that, so.
Yeah. They will juice him. He'll be fine in time for it. So,
after Justice League, the next comic book movie, if you don't count Star Wars, Black Panther.
Yeah.
And that's in February. And I'm a huge Funko Pop fan. And I love Funko Pops. I have a list of them I want for Christmas. I have tons of them. I actually might I have a display case that I was going to put my action figures in. I think I might put my Funko Pops in there now and ask for some more display cases for my action figures. Yeah. They're doing Black Panther Funko Pops. So based on the movie. So and that's what I like about them is because they do characters from shows and movies that you might not expect, and they're cute little models and they look realistic and they're really, I mean, they got big heads and no mouths, but the costumes, but their costumes are good and it's a neat little statue and my kids still play with them like toys. So, and I do too. Let's see. The Boys, which was I think a Garth Ennis or one of those Garth Ennis, Warren Ellis, they're the same guy to me anyway. That was a book by I think it was DC. Their adult version, Vertigo, is being produced by Seth Rogen for Amazon. So Seth Rogen is doing Preacher right now. He also bought the rights to The Boys, and that's going to be produced by Amazon. So Amazon has got another one in the books coming up as well. And I should have probably, now I think about it, I probably should have tailed end this to the Shazam news. The rumor was that the Rock has already been cast as Black Adam, and he keeps talking about doing the thing. But then it came out about a month or so ago that he wasn't going to be in the Shazam movie.
Right.
Like, well, why the hell not? But apparently he's going to make his first appearance in Suicide Squad too, which actually makes it's bad, but it makes sense because at one time Black Adam was a member of the Suicide Squad. So it actually does make sense for him to do that. But yeah, I would prefer to probably have him appear in Shazam first, and then have him go over to Suicide Squad. And it's Suicide Squad 2, so unless they get a new creative team, it's going to stink anyway. But
and he is not getting any younger. They need to hurry this up, because I love The Rock. I absolutely love everything that he does. Well, almost everything, but he's not getting any younger, and that's a very physical role that he's going to have to do. So,
Yeah, get a couple under your belt. Get Suicide Squad. Get Captain Shazam #2, I guess. Or maybe you are going to show up in Shazam. You're just surprising us. Continuing the trend of women in film, they have dipped back into the old school stuff, and they're finally doing something right. We always complain about remakes and stuff like that. Well, what they should be doing is remaking bad movies, and it looks like they're going to be doing that with a Red Sonja movie. Now, look, the Bridget Nielsen and Arnold was terrible. It's terrible. But Red Sonja herself is a really interesting character. And particularly now, Dynamite is doing they do the Red Sonja comic now, and they have a really interesting story going on. It's cliched, but it's one that makes a lot of sense. Amy Chu is writing it, so you have a female writing it, and Carlos Gomez, who's got a really good art style, and at the same time, she's another one of those sexy, yummy, costumey type of characters. They've actually brought her to the present day and have her doing that. So it's great seeing her go to Vegas and get into bar fights, having her drive motorcycles and trucks and stuff that a tough woman you would expect. And it makes perfect sense for her character. You think of Red Sonja, who is this tough woman, comes from the past to the future, and once she got over the future shock, she would notice the big trucks and the motorcycles and say, this is something I could really get into. And that's exactly what they're doing. So they got a Red Sonja movie coming up now. If they can just do it right. I wouldn't say put her in present day, even though that would be a fun thing. But maybe set her up and like they did with Wonder Woman. You have a story takes place in the past, and then with Red Sonja, what you could do is you could have her set up her place in Samaria, and then you could have that story, and then if it does successful, you can make Red Sonja 2 take place in present day then, and it would be fun to see her get into bar fights and go to Las Vegas and ride motorcycles and do shit like that, because you see those tough women do stuff like that. So good on that. I'm not going to talk about that. We don't need to talk about that. That's my own personal. Actually, real quick, how I told you about the Flintstones was a great social thing. They ended the Flintstones, and now DC's doing their second wave of Hanna-Barbera updates. The Jetsons #1 came out a couple weeks ago. It's written by Jimmy Palmiotti, and it's actually really good. It's I think he's trying for a Fantastic Four vibe a little bit, though they don't have powers. Basically, what the setup is that climate change is real. And at this time, the ice caps have melted, so that's why they're all living in the sky like they are in the cartoon, because it's completely water now on Earth. Well, Jane, now instead of being a housewife, is now a scientist, and she has discovered that there's a comet that is going to an extinction level comet is on its way to hit the Earth, and it's going to be there like in 11 days. And they have to figure out a way to save the day. So she's not telling her family about it. She's just saying, I got a conference I have to go to on the moon. And that's where she reveals what's going on so they can figure out what's going on. George is working for Mr. Spacely still, but he's a lesser member of the business community than Cogsworth is, and he's repairing stuff. So he's more repairing things now. He's more hands-on than just being a computer guy and pressing buttons and stuff like that. Elroy is like the adventurer kid who is going exploring the water, the watery depths of the Earth, and he discovers something that sets in motion the storyline, which they discover that the meteor that killed the dinosaurs has been in the deep portions of the water for the longest time. It's just been sitting there. But then they realize that it's not exactly a comet, that it's something else, but they have to get back before they realize what's going on. And they accidentally drop like a nuclear bomb on it, and it explodes, and it looks like something's coming out of it. So that might help, stop the tide of things. But what makes it really weird is that Rosie, the robot maid, actually has the memories of George's mother. She died, but she didn't want to die, so they input her memories into Rosie's, and so she's watching over them and stuff like that. And then I think Judy is still the popular girl, but she's the type of person who can use her popularity to spread the word about things, stuff like that. So it's actually very fun. You know, it's not your typical. The Jetsons was a really goofy, terrible cartoon, sort of sexist and stuff like that. This updates a little bit. It's actually a lot of fun. So that's cool. Like that. Lockjaw is getting his own book. The teleporting dog from the Inhuman. It's a mini series, but still, that might be something fun to do. Yeah. Let's see, I'll tell us later. Justice League Day is going to be on the 18th at comic book stores. So the movie comes out on the 17th. They did this with Wonder Woman also. They'll have a free comic book. It's like a adaptation. It's like a version of the #1 Justice League from Rebirth. So, but still, if you want to go in and you just saw Justice League, go to your local comic book store. You'll get a free comic, and you can check it out and see. They'll probably have a whole bunch of Justice League stuff. If you like the movie, you can go in there and check it out. Right. Anything else? Excuse me. The same day is also local comic shop day. They have like these special variant covers that say local comic shop day, which they're going to put on for sale, but it's not as big of a deal anymore. And that's about it. So I think Gotham by Gaslight had a trailer. They're doing that as the next DC animated film. It looks okay. Yeah. Nothing. I wish they would have done more of a Mignola-esque artwork for it. Instead, it just looks generic artwork. So we'll see. It's rated R, like Killing Joke was. But it's about Jack the Ripper, though, killing prostitutes. So,
How bad can it be?
Exactly. All right. On that note, I think I am just about out of everything. MJ, you all set?
Yeah, I think so. Time to go and we'll catch some football.
Exactly. Real quick, though, because the holidays are coming fast, MJ, tell people where to get your book.
Amazon, any of the electronic digital outlets, wherever you buy electronically. Just go to it, download. Yeah,
multiple books by Mr. MJ
There you go.
Great Christmas presents all around. And how about your new book? Is that out yet, or
no? Because I'm waiting until I finish the entire arc before I release even the first one. So I finished the first one, halfway through the second one. So they're going pretty fast. So it's been a busy, not the best summer, but now I'm like, okay, time to roll. Fall's here, new weather, new everything. So
there you go. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, MJ, as always, thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank you.
We both recommend Thor Ragnarok. Go ahead and see it.
Yep, go see it.
I think you'll enjoy it. I will even go so far as to say, why not check out Justice League next week? I won't, but
somebody will. I'll check it out probably. And a store though, and take your kids. I mean, I think that's a fun one for children too.
I was thinking about that. I mean, I know Dawn wants to see it, and I was like, you know what? It might actually. It's not going to be that bad because there really isn't anything too horrible in it. I mean, when the Executioner opens fire with his guns, he's shooting demonic creatures, and when they're getting killed by Hela, I mean, the sword goes through them, but there's like not any blood spurt or anything like that. It's just and it's fun, and the fight scene between Thor and the Hulk in the arena was fantastic also, and the whole doing the thing they did to Loki, and Loki's like, yes, now you know
that's how it feels.
So yeah, definitely check that out. Next week, sometime, Jerry Fletcher and I will be on here. We'll be doing top 10 pet peeves. I got to start writing those down. I have a couple, but I was like, you know what? They're all about cars. They're people don't know how to park. They don't know how to yield. They go too fast. Like I go like 15, 20 over the speed limit sometimes where I'm going too fast, and people pass me. I was like, seriously, come on, man.
They don't know how a four-way stop works at all.
Exactly.
It's worse than that. I'm like, well, how do you not know how a four-way stop works?
I need to think of some others because all of them right now are like car, parking, cars, motorcycles. Yes. Yeah. I still probably half of them are probably going to be car, motorcycle. So, so that's going to that. So we'll do that, and then it'll be Thanksgiving weekend. I'll probably just do a solo event for that. Just wrap up November or whatever, and then we're getting December. I want to do some Star Wars stuff. I think Jerry and I will do like a top 10 Star Wars aliens list. I think I want to do a just in general roundtable discussion about Star Wars once we get closer to Last Jedi. And then we got Christmas to look forward to. So all kinds of fun stuff. I'll be in touch with you, MJ, about next time we come up. It'll probably be the first weekend in December, as always, but we'll check it out. And after that, that's it. Thank you for everyone who watched. We had 2 viewers at one time. We've had 1 viewer pretty much the whole day, so thank you for watching.
Thank you, Mr. Viewer.
And go see Thor Ragnarok if you haven't already.
Definitely.
All right. Happy November. Stay warm out there. And again, MJ, thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Bye.